there's a growing chorus for people who are requesting JobKeeper 3.0. Justin Hems is the latest to join that chorus. What are you hearing? Do you believe there's any movement on that front, or is it going to stay where it is?
Well, senior people in the government didn't rule it out to me earlier in the week, but it all depends what happens with the New South Wales and Victorian outbreaks. Now, I notice in Victoria, the news has just come out, 22 more cases today. The good news is they're all linked, but how are they going to get out in 7 days if Dan Andrews is shooting for zero? We're in a pretty dire situation here, Pete.
Yeah.
And even as I came in, there seemed to be a lot of traffic on the road, I have to say. And I can only compare it to the lockdown last year. Remember the national lockdown initially?
Yeah.
I just remember less traffic. And
I
just think Gladys Berejiklian, and sorry, mate, I'll just make this point. She went too late and not hard enough, and now we are in a pretty dire position. Now, she says the latest restrictions should kick in the next couple of days. We'll see the numbers go down. You can only pray so. My fear is they won't, that it's out too far.
Well, you made a great point yesterday, I thought, Andrew, when you said that this time around it's different. People are sick of it. You know, there was a kind of a novelty first time around. It's like, okay, we've got to do this. But this time around, we're 18 months into it. Half the country is in lockdown. And this all comes, as Laura Jays just pointed out a short time ago to me, that this all comes a few weeks after the Prime Minister and the National Cabinet decided that lockdowns were supposed to be a last resort. That was just a couple of weeks ago.
Well, they can only be a last resort when we're vaccinated. And even though the government likes to give out the first dose figure, in terms of second doses, we're only at 13%, which is woeful. And, you know, I'm not really buying the excuses, to be honest, that they couldn't have put, their shoulders to the wheel a bit more on this one. So that just requires urgent attention. They're still pretty confident they'll get it done by December, January.
But even then, sorry, mate. Even then, when we hit certain levels of vaccinations, we're seeing now in the United Kingdom some 40,000 infections a day. The Netherlands has gone backwards. It went too early. Now Singapore is going backwards after, a couple of weeks ago it said that it's going to try and live with the virus. Now it said, no, we've gone too soon. We've got to go into some form of lockdown again. So even when you do hit these levels of vaccinations, maybe it's still not going to be enough.
You're trying to cheer me up, Pete.
I don't know. I mean, it's just the state that we're in, isn't it?
Look, it is. What we're going to see, I think, is we'll never go back to pre-pandemic, right? So we'll see some restrictions and most people vaccinated. And that's the world we live in. Look, we've got to pray for that world. We've got to pray for a world where people can go to work, kids can go to school, and even socially distanced with masks on, we can go to the pub or a restaurant. And I think that's where we're going to land at, which, let's face it, is better than what we've got right now.
Yeah.
But yes, you're just going to have to keep an eye on it. I think if there is one positive out of these lockdowns, and I struggle to find one, it's that I think the Australian mood, at least in Sydney and Melbourne, will move. But I do think, and I keep saying this, I genuinely believe that come early next year, and this will be an interesting electoral environment, we'll have a completely divided nation. We'll have WA still saying no cases, maybe Queensland, maybe Tassie, maybe SA, but definitely WA, and we'll have New South Wales and probably Victoria saying most people are vaccinated, we're going to live with some cases.
Yeah.
So complete division, state border closures like all the time. It's going to be a real mess.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Daniel Andrews has said this already. Once everybody has had the opportunity to get vaccinated, then we've kind of got to let it go. But then usually when someone says that, it's met with a firestorm of reaction saying, well, it's going to lead to deaths and we can't have that. So it's going to take some courage to do that. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's going to take some courage. But if we don't get the numbers down out of this lockdown, it's not going to take courage in Sydney. We're going to have no choice. And that's the sort of scary prospect because not everyone's vaccinated yet. We've sort of got this 4-month waiting window. My other concern is, Pete, that I keep hearing from people at the state and federal level about concerns about the infrastructure in place to put jabs in arms. Look, this is Scott Morrison's only priority right now, surely. He's got to move heaven and earth to get more doses. They keep saying that to me, there's nothing we can do on doses, right? We're getting heaps more. But I don't believe that. They've got to move heaven and earth to get more doses. They've got to look at AstraZeneca, even if it goes against the ATAGI advice. and they've got to put infrastructure in place in terms of stadiums, hubs, whatever, spend whatever it takes to get jabs into arms. And you've got to be innovative. You've got to think about, do we get squads, teams of people into the Fairfield area to jab people now? You've just got to think a bit laterally to get us out of this crisis.
Sure. Agree. Yep. All right, Andrew, appreciate that. Thank you.